Welcome students. This session is for BA second year English Literature paper 2nd, and we will continue with the essay by G.K. Chesterton on the pleasures of no longer being very young. Before we proceed to the text, let's have a recap of the essay we have already done in my previous session. In this essay on the pleasures of no longer being very young, Chesterton deals with the theme of youth, maturity, innocence, conflict, and happiness. So we see that Chesterton is talking about the advantage of being old in comparison to the youth age. Chesterton explores the difference between youth and maturity and argues that an older person is happier because they are more equipped for life. So in a way, experience of life equips a man to live, and this advantage goes with the older person and not with the younger. If they get stuck in life, they have the advantage of taking a proverb and understanding their position. So proverbs have meaning when a person advances in age. So whenever a person in the old age or in the mature times gets stuck with something, he always has a proverb that tells about the reality of life, that tells about that how a certain problem can be dealt with, or people have been dealing with certain things in their life. So old age has a deeper understanding in comparison to young people, and this is the advantage. The same is not true for a younger person. So this was the discussion that was going on in my previous presentation. Let's continue with the text now. Now, coming to the text of the essay, Chesterton writes that the advantage of advancing years lies in discovering that traditions are true and therefore alive. So only when a person grows old, he comes to know that traditions are there in society, not because they are just for the sake of it, but rather they have been passed down from generations to generation because they are true. There is an element of reality in it, and this reality, this truth in the tradition keeps them alive across generations. Indeed, a tradition is not even traditional except when it is alive. So you cannot call a tradition traditional until unless it is alive. Tradition becomes traditional. Tradition is followed by people across generation only because people feel that there is truth in it, there is logic in it, and this logic and truth about it keeps it alive across generations. It is great fun to find out that the world has not repeated proverbs because they are proverbial, but because they are practical. So just as we see that the traditions are followed by generations after generations because of their truth and because of their reality and because of their logic, same is the case with the proverbs. They are not followed across generations just because they are very interesting to listen to, that because they are proverbial. Proverbs are repeated in society because they are practical, because all the proverbs are full of practical wisdom. And then Chesterton gives an example. He says, "Until I owned a dog, I never knew what is meant by the proverb about letting a sleeping dog lie, or a fable about the dog in the manger." Just as only when a person owns a dog, he has the experience of a dog, only then he can understand the proverbs that are related to dogs. For example, letting a sleeping dog lie, because if the dog wakes up, maybe that dog bites anyone. So it is a fable to let the sleeping dog lie. Or then he talks about a fable about dog in the manger. And this idiom also means that it is for someone who keeps something that they do not really want in order to prevent anyone else from having it. And this proverb is for those self-centered people, because if a dog is there in the mango where the cattle eat their food, the dog neither eats it nor allows the cattle to eat from it. So it is for the self-centered people this thing is used. So only when you own a dog, only when you experience life, only then you are able to understand the meanings of proverbs. Now these dead phrases are quite alive to me, for they are parts of a perfectly practical psychology. So only with experience you come to know that these phrases, they are not dead, they are not meaningless, rather they are quite alive, they are very much practical, and they are part of practical psychology, that they are coming from human mind, which people have practiced in their lifetime, which people have repeatedly seen happening in their lifetime. Only out of that practical psychology, these proverbs, they become alive and they are repeated from generation after generation. So they are part of perfect practical psychology. Then he further gives example that until I went to live in a country, I had no notion of the meaning of the maxim, it's an ill wind that blows nobody good. There's one more important, or you can say one more quite famous proverb, and that is, it's an ill wind that blows nobody good. If a person who lives in city life, he does not feel important to pay attention to the wind, whether it blows from the eastern side or from the western side. But only a person who is living in the countryside, who is dealing with the grains, with the crops, only that person with his experience of country life knows which wind is beneficial and which one is not. So he understands, only with his experience of country life, he is able to understand this proverb, that it's an ill wind that blows nobody good. The wind, if it does not do good to you, it is an ill wind. Now, it seems to me as pertinent and even pungent as if it were a new remark just made to me by a neighbor at the garden gate. Once having experience of country life, of the village life, of the rural life, these proverbs, these maxims, they appear so much full of meaning and so much full of truth that they appear to the writer as pertinent, as important and sharp as if they were new remarks. These maxims, they appear as fresh as a new remark just made to me by a neighbor at the garden gate. Just as a neighbor freshly speaks from the garden gate to you, in the same manner, these maxims, like an ill wind that blows nobody good, after experiencing life, after experiencing country life, these maxims, they appear absolutely fresh, and one does not feel that they have been passed through by generations. Rather, one feels that they are applicable to every age and every generation, and fresh in all ages. It is something to come to live in the world of living and significant things instead of dead and unmeaning things. So when a person is young, he feels that these maxims, these proverbs, they don't have any meaning and they are dead. But with the experience, and one comes to know as one grows old, that everything that is there in the world in the form of tradition or in the form of maxim, they are very significant. They are living rather than dead or unmeaning. And it is youth in revolt, even in righteous revolt, which sees its surrounding as dead and unmeaning. Then he says that young people, they revolt. They do not accept the world as it is. And maybe they are right in their own position, because they do not see meaning around them. It's only with the age, it's only with the experience one comes to one comes to see the depth of meaning in traditions, in maxims. So the young people, they revolt because they feel that their surrounding, the world around them, is dead and unmeaning. This old age and even second childhood that has come to see that everything means something and that life itself has never died. The writer very beautifully compares old age to second childhood. Why childhood? Because in childhood, person is very keen to learn, is very keen to explore and experience. In the same manner, this keenness and this understanding, this level of understanding the things around is also in old age because of experience. They come to see that everything in the world around has some meaning in itself, and life is has never died. Rather, life keeps on giving new meanings and new dimensions as the person grows older. If we analyze this much portion that we have done, we see that the proverbs and the human history, they offer us practical wisdom, but people fail to understand that wisdom. So when they are young, they are not able to understand this wisdom, this practical wisdom, this what the traditions give us, that these maxims and proverbs give us. These people are unable to understand when they are young, though they are full of practical wisdom, which a person understands only when a person grows old. Proverbs are repeatedly used only because they are practical. So the main thing that we have talked about in this session is that proverbs are repeated because they have that element of practicability. People can use them and people feel that they are living very much alive in their daily life. This is best understood in the old age. This realization comes quite later in life with the experience. Old age is the second childhood because in old age one can understand the real meaning of everything. So it's just like a second childhood. When a person is child, a person is curious and person explores life, the meaning of life. In the same manner, old age is a second childhood because it's only at this time of life one understands the real meaning of everything, of the world, of everything that is around himself. Thanks for now. We'll continue in my next session.